Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with Tia and Jill. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Welcome to the week. Granted, your
Yes,
week may have started yesterday already.
that's true. That's true. Or some
Mhm.
people that might be watching, you might be almost through your Monday.
Mhm.
We're getting started here in the States, but we, of course, want to hear where are you watching from this morning?
Yeah, where are you joining us from? And are you in the Arctic tundra with me here in Minnesota?
I know.
This latest jet stream, this morning I woke up and the feels like was like minus 37.
Ooh, oh my goodness. Well, we did get a little snow last night.
Did you?
We're in the 30s or in the 20s, I think. Um, and some teens maybe like when the sun's not out, but
Yeah.
not negative 30.
No, no. I just avoid going outside right now.
There you go.
But I do love to live vicariously through where everybody else is showing up from. So I love when you
Yeah.
drop it in there and then I can be like, oh, yes, Tennessee or California or wherever you are.
Yes, we love to hear it. We love to hear it. We love to see it. We love to be in conversation with you and talk about the real things, right? And today's topic
Mm,
is a I love the topic because it's all about influence and leading without leverage, right?
mm,
Many of us, right, really in the food industry, we're not in charge, right? We don't have the top title. And most of the time, directions are not coming from people who have the title, who has, right, the authority. And for the people who don't have the authority, we're still expected, right, to make these changes, fix systems, and keep things from
mhm.
falling apart.
Yeah, I think it's one of the funniest things because I mean, I did this, right? When I remember being like a lab associate and I was like, someday when I'm a supervisor, I'm going to make this decision different or whatever.
Oh, yes.
And right, just that obviously early career, like probably, I'll be honest, I wasn't quite mature, but
Right, yeah.
just thinking and not understanding that
Mhm.
even when you're the boss, like you don't just get to like hammer down on here's what we're doing. And if you do, interesting
You can call
because
it.
depending on who's on your team, that may or may not work very effectively.
Right,
But I
yeah.
think there's that myth behind there that like, gosh, when I'm in charge, I get to make more decisions and be more impactful. Yes, yes, and kind of.
Right, yeah, yeah,
That's
and
why I love today's topic too, because we all do think, even when you are the one you think is the boss, you
right.
really, the influence muscle is what you should be exercising every day.
And Jill, very good point around like even when you are the boss, if you're leading in that way, there's other issues, right, happening because you're leading in that way. And we run into those leaders, right, of like, I'll just tell people what to do. Or I remember talking specifically to a software company who we talk to software companies all the time about how to help their clients get ready for their software. And I was talking to someone and they were saying that, yeah, there's this organization and they're doing well rolling it out. But it's a little concerning because their leader is like, do it or else, and I'm like, and so they're like, it's moving forward, but maybe a little concerning. And I'm like, yes, because once that leader is gone, then there's
Then
not the
what?
or else that's there. So you didn't
Yeah.
create champions. You really just created these people that's doing it because, they're kind of going with the flow because they feel like they're going to lose their job versus I believe in this. I want to be a part of this. I'm going to continue this even when the leader is not around.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, if it is your first time joining us for Real Talk, as you can tell, we're going to have some good conversations today. We like to say honest conversations to lead people forward in food.
Yes.
And I'm Jill. This is Tia.
Hi.
And like we said, today is all about leading without leverage because regardless of where you are, direct reports, no direct reports,
Mm-hmm.
low on the totem pole, high on the totem pole, however you want to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
going to need to lead with influence.
Yes. 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 But first, let's talk about what's trending. This is something we started with Real Talk this season, just to kind of break it up and see like what are people talking about in the workspace. We like to connect the work that we're doing with what's really happening, hence Real Talk.
Mhm.
And so, Jill, you found a really funny clip. I'm
It
gonna see
is
if I can
kind of
share it.
funny. Yeah, let's see. This is our first time sharing a video through this StreamYard platform. So
Yes,
let's see if we
and
can make that happen.
to be to be also clear that we want to make sure that it's on a website that has a lot of advertisements around it. But
It
I
does.
think I kind of got it from a pop up. I'm just gonna just share my screen. Let's see if I can bring it up. There it is.
Like you
And
said, lots of pop-ups on this, folks, but
but let's see if I can share. Oh, maybe I can do this there.
yeah. So people might be wondering, like, what's going on there?
Oh, they recognize the music.
Right. Yeah, if you use Microsoft Teams, you're probably like, what's happening right now? Is somebody trying to call me?
Oh my gosh, I love that. I know for right people who have Microsoft Teams, they probably were like, "Oh my gosh, is someone calling me this morning?"
Right. And can you believe this DJ has like transitioned it into like getting a crowd to be like dancing to the Microsoft team thing? Like that's leading by influence.
Right, right. You know,
Holy
turning
smokes.
something in that really, as you think about, I mean, how many times do we hear people, oh, every time I hear that Teams sound, right? But this DJ has really turned into something positive, something fun, right? And so now, you know, you're welcome. Now, when you hear your Teams message go off,
Hopefully you're
you
ready
can
to
now think
like
about this, right?
dance it up a little bit.
You can get moving. You can get moving.
Yeah. Right. And whether it's teams where you're thinking like, oh, another team, or maybe it's another meeting where you get to see influence, power struggles play out, like whatever it means to you when you hear that. I mean, it's in this scenario with the video, it is a little bit funny.
Yeah. It is, and to think about too, like if you're in this environment and you have like this team's PTSD sort of thing going on your team because you're burnt out, right? Overworked, you have a lot going on, there's a lot of conversations happening. This might be a laugh that you can bring to your team, right, to lighten the mood before diving into something heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And, I think that's the thing, right? Like when we think about doing our work, part of it is when it does feel heavy,
Yeah.
like that's also where we often aren't using influence in an appropriate way because influence doesn't need to feel heavy.
No, no.
Right. I mean, we talk about this a lot because it's one of the things that we get asked the most about, like, how do I influence better?
Yeah.
And we're like, it all comes down to connections and relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think
That's
we
what it comes
sometimes
down
get
to.
cut off with influence thinking it means we're manipulating or we're trying to be persuasive. And like those words kind of carry this negative connotation, but
Yeah.
really influence is about like connecting, sharing, being curious.
Yeah, yeah. You know, for people who've gone through our leadership boot camp or looked it up or know about it, like, we talk about influence there. But influence is about the ninth module. There's 14 modules in boot camp, and it's about the ninth module. And people are like, "Oh, I'm so ready to get to influence." But like you said, you have to build connection before you're able to influence properly. So we talk about building relationships and building trust and safe spaces way before we talk about influence. Because like you said, and this is really going into our first main point, is that influence isn't about control. It's about connection, connecting to people. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
have that connection first before you can influence in any way.
Yeah, and coming from we I don't want to say we pick on, but coming from food safety and quality, it seems easy to lead with science and data.
Yeah.
And I learned really quickly when I would start talking science jargon where people would just glass eye tune me out. I had not connected with them on a human level to even have them be curious about what I was talking about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we see it, we see it across the clients that we work with, the people that we coach, right? They're trying to influence and move people through. And if there's no connection, if there's no trust, if there's no relationship, then people are also looking at, why should I listen to you? Right? Like, why
Yeah.
should I listen to you? Why should I trust you over someone else? Why should I trust you over myself? Right? We run
Mm-hmm.
into many people that's like, I think I know the path. And you're like, that's not the path we want to take. Well, why should I trust you over my own self? That
Mm-hmm.
it really comes down to that true connection, that relationship.
It is. And if you even go back to like sales, and I had sales training, and part of that we hear all the time is people buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Influence is the same way. Ideas are the same way. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to get ideas from someone that I don't like, don't trust, and don't know.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
when you think of it from that standpoint, like, you need to know someone and what they stand for and what they value, and maybe
Yeah.
even know, like, I know you won't fully, like, this isn't something you maybe fully can support, but can you support this part? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where having connections and relationships with people, it's, yeah, I wish, on one hand, I wish we could take influence out of this part of the dictionary when it comes to leadership, because really it's about connections.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're absolutely right, and it reminds me of a client that I was coaching, and she's talking through. Oh, I'm working with this person in industry. They've been in industry for 30 years. They say that they know these things, but they don't separate allergens appropriately.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, how are you trying to influence that? And really, we ultimately got down to, how are you building relationships with people? Because, like you
Hmm.
said, using regulations, data, science, best practices, all of those things. Well, that person's been in the industry for 30 years. So that's not an influencing method, right, to use in that situation. But once you build the relationship and start having conversations, then you could see, right, how do I inspire this person to take up this best practice? How do I inspire this person to move in a way that they haven't before in 30 years, right?
Hmm.
You don't know that unless you build a relationship, build the trust, build the safe spaces, and open that conversation, right? Open the
Hmm.
conversation up.
Yeah, I think it's, once again, it goes back to that curiosity, because anybody can read the like GFSI requirements that say allergens should be separated.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, in that situation, you can say that and someone will go, "Yep, I know that."
Right.
But instead, how do you build on this and be like, what do you think would happen if, you know, your dairy allergen had some holes in it and it all fell through onto this one?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen? Like, how would you all handle that?
Right. That's a
But you
different
can't,
conversation, right?
yeah, but that's like you said, the difference. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a relationship, it's hard to ask those type of questions,
Yeah.
not knowing maybe what people will respond to or how. But
Mm-hmm.
that's also the joy, and maybe what holds people back too from building relationships, not knowing what people will do.
Yeah, and what they will say. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this point makes me think about, like, how as leaders, you know, we need to slow down. And before going straight forward to, I got my to-do list and I need to do, I need to do this and then to get people on board, and I need to do all of this. Think about the other person and think about, like, your to-do list is not their to-do list, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
other to-dos to think about, and most likely they're not even thinking about what you are trying to influence them on, or they think that we shouldn't do it and it shouldn't be on their to-do list anyway. So having that connection and understanding those points makes it easier for you to have conversations. And you don't know, I don't know, maybe they might influence you that you don't need to go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
That's an option, right? When you open your mind, when you open conversation, you also open up yourself to have the best possible solution, because you might be influenced as a part of this conversation.
Yeah, it's that leading with curiosity and learning versus, like, let me share what I know.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And that makes a really big difference because even when you go into the conversation, because we've all been there, right? Where someone's like, they may ask a question, but it's so leading
Yeah.
that it's very clear what that's supposed to be versus really, asking questions for things that you really don't know and just to
Mm-hmm.
learn and be curious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
Exactly.
helps people come along with you and feel more inspired that you're there to help solve something or make something better when you bring them into that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they feel they're a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a part of it. I also like when we talk about this to say that it doesn't mean that you just eliminate the facts, right? And don't bring up the
Mm-hmm.
facts. The facts are very important. You want to have those. You want to make sure that, your facts line up with where you're going. So it doesn't mean to never bring them up. But you want to couple it with building this connection and really inspiring people to move forward. And some people might be more data inclined, right? Those are the people that you want to shine with, right? You want to say, here's all the data, and they're like, wow, I love this data. This is how I'm gonna move forward. We all know those people, right? But you know that that's what they love. That's the connection, right? That's the relationship, is that that's how they think. This is what moves them forward. This inspires them to move forward in their work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when we think about influence, in using data or, leading meetings, we often think that to influence, we have to be the one, well, like we said, kind of in charge and being
Yeah.
loud about it and being kind of, I don't want to say in your face, but like
Mhm.
right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's also one of the myths of influence, that really influence can happen so often in the quiet moments.
Yeah.
And this comes from, an introvert who is naturally, um, I don't necessarily just jump in there and be like, this is where we're going. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, if you're out there, you've seen me do that.
Hmm.
But it's these little moments of like planting seeds of
Yeah.
curiosity for people that actually can drive influence in soft ways that feel natural.
Hmm. Hmm. And this is the part of leadership, right? That introverts might thrive at, right? They're used to being quiet, listening, observing, where extroverts might not, right? That might be something that they need to work more on. But you're right, this piece of really being quiet and listening, right? Listening is like the number one thing around influence, and building those connections, that you have to know how to listen, actively listen to the people around you. And so you're right, like being able to hear others' opinions, other perspectives, right? And not, you don't always, like you said, have to be loud, have to be the one in front, have to be the one that has the answers, right? You might not have the answers, and that is okay, right? You can still influence and should influence in that way.
Mm-hmm. And especially in these days where our schedules are so busy and everything's happening around us, like we don't need to add to the chaos. We don't need to add and be loud necessarily. Like
Right. Yeah.
how we can stay grounded and help others be grounded as we, navigate through some of these situations that, for lack of a better term, that we are looking for influence or
Hmm.
understanding influence in these
Hmm.
situations.
Hmm.
So um, I think that's another really important part.
Yeah, I think so too. It's about, I make it, reminds me of just being intentional about when you speak, right? Intentional about when you speak, intentional about when you do not speak. And as leaders, being mindful of, in this meeting, I need to listen more than speaking here. Or in this meeting, I might need to speak more because this is the intention, right? And being actually, mindfully present about that, so that you can get the type of outcomes that you want to see. And it sounds easy, right? It sounds easy, but it's not, right? It's really hard to
It's
be in a space and you're like, I'm supposed to be here listening, not really adding, but your mind is like, ooh, good thought, or ooh, I want to say something about that, but let it play out, right? Because you need to intentionally listen sometimes, and then sometimes you need to intentionally speak. That's
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah, I'm going to share. I'm going to do a plug for the book I've been reading lately, the Art of Quiet Influence.
Yes.
And funny enough, I've had this book on my shelf back here probably at least 5 years, if not more.
Oh, wow.
And I actually didn't. Obviously, I hadn't picked it up because influence can feel kind of icky at times when we talk about it with those other words like manipulation and being,
Mhm.
persuasive. So I kind of left it on the side. But for whatever reason, now was the time I picked it up. And not just because of this show coming up, but it is fascinating if you get a chance to read it, or maybe we'll have it as one of our book media club.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but it's really this people forward relationships and in the little moments. And it's a really worthwhile read if somebody's like, how do I step into this differently?
Mm.
Because,
Mm.
whether it's power is quiet or influence can be quiet, or, how do you navigate through some of that chaos? This book has a lot of great stories.
Okay. I have not read the book yet, so that will be an awesome read.
It
Right.
is a good read. It is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that because, many times as we think about like inspirational leadership or influencing leadership, sometimes we equate it with being loud or being front and
Mhm.
center. But most of the time when your influence it actually is quiet. It actually is in the background.
It is. And because it connects so much to what we're talking about today, that's why, since it's sitting here, because it's one I've been reading, that's why I wanted to plug it, because it does talk a lot about these little moments of intentional leadership where it's not, having a meeting and going through everything and on your scorecard and checking your KPIs.
Yeah.
It's these little moments of, walking over to someone, or when you see them, be like, hey, I saw the scorecard's looking great. Way to do that. Keep going.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but those are the little moments that people go, oh, I had a connection. Like, you saw
Mhm.
me, you saw the work I'm doing, and I didn't have to wait for a formal setting in a meeting to have you notice that.
Yeah, yeah. This is where, we believe people start stepping into really being a strategic leader, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
something that we focus on in our strategic leader course where it's how do I show up in that way, right? You might have some foundations around, okay, influence. I know, there's different ways to influence, but when you can really start to influence in small moments, like the way you talk about it, that's when you start to show up more as a strategic leader in your organization.
Yeah, it's just a different type of leadership.
Yeah.
And, it's building upon skills.
Mhm.
We've been talking a lot about these soft skills are really critical skills. So
Mhm.
human skills, soft skills, but these are critical skills,
Mhm.
especially as we think about where the industry is headed when it comes to people and AI and robotics and all of those things.
Yes, absolutely. And because
Mhm.
we haven't really seen them as critical historically in the industry, we are now feeling, right? We're feeling the outcomes of it, right? The symptoms of not valuing leadership skills.
Mhm.
We see it in retention, we see it in engagement, right? We see it
Mhm.
in empowerment. Everyone wants to empower their team. It's hard to do that, right? Because we have not, right, taken advantage of growing these leadership skills that our leaders need.
Yeah, and I'll often go back to my own story because when it comes to influence, um, part of why I probably use data or science as my armor is because if people were like, "No, I don't like that," like, I'd be like, "Whoa, that's conflict," and I'm passive, so I'm stepping back from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also one of these things where when we think about influence, that it does create a space where we need to be a little bit vulnerable as leaders.
Yeah.
We need to be open to people going, no, I don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that resistance is actually exactly why you need to lean in there when you think about influencing and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes, yes. Yeah. It's one that, even as we were writing up the show and like seeing the words of like resistance isn't the enemy,
Mm.
right? It's not the enemy, it's a part of the job. That is so true, right? Like you should expect it. even as you look to influence, as you look to move, you should expect some amount of resistance just because we're human beings, right? And we like things to stay the same. We do. We like things to stay the same. We like things to be predictable, especially once we just got this started. We are rocking and rolling, and I know what to do here. I might not know what to do over here, right? I have to learn something totally new. What if I fail at it? All of these things are happening to us as human beings. And so resistance is a part of the job. It should be a part of your plan. And so that's why leadership skills are so important, because we assume, oh, we're going to make this change. We're going to do these things, and then we're not going to have any resistance. No, you're still going to see some resistance. You just need to build in those conversations, those connections to understand where the resistance is coming from. Should you listen to it? Right? Like, people are telling you something. Listen to it, right? Try to understand it. Try to get on the same page. That's what influence is all about.
Yeah, and it's a normal human reaction, right? To shy away from things that feel like resistance because it's survival.
Right.
And I think about, like you said, the coaching that we do. I mean, a lot of times coaching conversations are around like, what is it that we're like avoiding? That resistance is often like where we don't want to go because we are unsure of how to handle some of that resistance. But yet, when we think, I'm going to expect resistance, like what will that look like? What will it feel like? How do I stand in that and still be open and inviting to others so that they're willing to share so that we can move forward together?
Yes, yes. And I want to take it one step farther. What if you have the mindset of, I'm expecting this resistance and I have the tools to work within it and come to a positive outcome? Now it feels like, ooh, this might be fun, right? For us to get to this might be fun. I have the tools, I have and I know the person, right? I built the relationship. This is how I kind of think about influence. Like,
yeah, I know. I'm laughing because if somebody's watching us, they're going to see my face, be like, wow. And you're like, I'm in. And I'm like, yeah, passive Midwestern. Like, no, maybe.
Because it's funny as you talk about influence and you're like, yeah, kind of shying away. For me, it's fun because I love just talking to people in general and learning about people. And when you're in this space of everyone sort of coming together and talking about their perspectives, and some people like it, some people don't, and this is how it impacts their role and that type of thing, I'm learning so much about what they do, who they are as people, the things that they like. I'm also collecting information for the next time that I'm going to have to influence, the next time I'm going to have these conversations. What do they like me to bring to the table? What influences them best? What kind of sets off their, I'm inspired, I want to move forward. I'm collecting that information about people. And for me, that's fun. That's fun to do. And knowing, right, like, we're going to get to the other side of this. We have the skills to be able to do this. We have the relationships have been built. That's fun. Now, I've been in situations where I don't have the relationships. I don't know the person. I don't know how this is going to turn out, right? That's when I feel the little fuzzies in my stomach, right? That's when I feel like, ooh, I'm not quite sure how this is going to turn out, mainly because I don't have the relationships. I don't have that connection.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love how we are sometimes so opposite, which is cool. I love it. That's what makes this all so good. And I do want to let people know, like, even though my initial reaction is like, ugh, after all these years of coaching and training, like, I also have rewritten, like, when I know this is coming up, like, I have self-talk to help me through it.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not something where like I keep avoiding it, but you clearly see my response and my reaction here, where it's not on the top of my list of like, this is going to be fun from the standpoint of I might encounter resistance. But I have self-talk where I'm like, okay, all right, Jill, here's what we're going to be doing today. Here's what you can expect. You can stand in this because it's your place to be curious. It's your place to invite people in, or whatever happens to be my pep talk to myself for that day. But that's also one of the skills that we really work on with our clients, whether it's coaching or in our cohorts of how do you self-coach
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
these moments?
Yeah, it
Because that's
reminds.
what helps kind of build that long-term change that you're looking for to make it easier each time. Makes it
Yes.
easier each time.
Yes, yes. I mean, such a great point, Jill, especially as you talk about like the emotion around it. It doesn't go away, but you recognize, ooh, okay, I got to go into this situation. This is how I'm feeling about it. Now, how do I deal with it? Right?
Mhm.
Like, what are some things I need to do, whether it's self talk, whether it's journaling, whether it's taking 5 minutes before the meeting for deep breaths, maybe it's writing down your thoughts, right? There's a lot of different ways to kind of get your head in the right mindset to go into a conversation. And even
Mhm.
if you think it's fun, you still have to do you still have to do those things because it's still hard, right? It's still hard to do. There's still things that are unpredictable. So doing those things that help you get into the right mindset to have those conversations is so important. It does not mean the emotion goes away. We talked about this in enrichment this last week for this month, where we were talking about different emotions, and it's like you're still going to be angry, right? You're still going to feel happiness, whatever the emotion is. It's not like you're going to try to eliminate it. It's like, what do you do with that information?
Mm.
When I think sometimes people are like, well, resistance is, I want it to feel fun for me. Well, it might not ever feel fun for you because this is not
Right.
where you like to sit, right? That's okay. How does it feel
Mhm.
to you? And then how do
Mhm.
you navigate that?
Yes. Can I recognize it? Can I then self coach on it or whatever it is? Sometimes just recognizing that it's there is the best thing. Just be like, it's here.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Now I can make a choice on what I can sit there or I
Mhm,
can do something different.
mhm.
But if you never recognize it, you don't even have those choices.
Right, exactly. And, even as you think about, because I know people are listening, they're like, oh, sometimes I feel like too nervous to have the conversation. Well, you might
Mhm.
need to shift it to the next day. We've all shown up. I've definitely shown up to work and I'm like, you know what? I am in a bad mood and I do not need to have this meeting today. Let me
Mhm.
shift it to another day because that's important, right? That
Yeah.
impacts how you show up and how well you're going to be able to influence.
Yeah. And you really have a good platform there to kind of move us into another spot, which is, we've been really talking about us as, how we're showing up. But this also, when you think about having these conversations, you need to be reading the room. Like
Yes.
whether it's an individual that you're going to be in conversation with, or perhaps it is at a meeting or with your
Mm-hmm.
team or somewhere. Like part of this is reading the room to be like, hey, what's the energy here? How are people feeling? if if you're moving into it and you're like, I'm gonna rah rah through something to influence, and people are like, not the day, can you read
Right.
that?
Exactly. Exactly. Like that's not the time to push, right? It's not the time to push because you're not going to get the type of outcome that you're hoping to get.
Yeah, it's just gonna feel like you're pushing versus inviting.
Yes.
Right. And people are much more open to being invited someplace than being pushed into someplace.
Yes. Yes. I like that, Jill. It's one of the things, like even as you're in meetings, like if you feel like you're pushing, stop. Right?
Mm.
Like take a step back. Maybe this is not the time, unless it's something that's urgent. And I want to say really urgent, not just because it's on your to do list and you want to check it off for the day. Unless it's something urgent, there's no need to push, right? Like that's only going to cause conflict. Take a step back. And I know I've done this many times in meetings. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm pushing. Maybe I didn't think about it in that way, but I feel like I'm not moving forward. I can't get the group to
Mhm.
move forward. I might need to take a step back and get curious, invite connection, right? On what is kind of going on in the space. Wow,
Yeah.
like, ooh, we did have that really terrible thing happen last week. How are people feeling about that? Maybe we need to spend some of this time doing that so we can build some connection with the group so that we can move forward with the conversation that we need to have.
Mhm. Even something like a due date. I
Yeah.
think about when you're like, that needs to be done by Friday. Like, wow, it feels like, I mean, once again, depending on what it is and who you're talking to and all the things,
Mm-hmm.
that can feel kind of pretty directive. And
Mhm.
Do you need to feel that way? Or could it be like, what would it take to have that done by Friday?
Right. Yeah.
It's such a subtle shift, but yet it really shifts the conversation, the energy, and the power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
when you can lean in like that, you also get more information because in your head, you already might be like, I don't see why we can't get that done on Friday. And then
Right. Yeah.
someone's like, do you know all the things I have going on from now till Friday that you already told me were priorities? Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Opening that door for conversation so that if somebody's like, I really don't think we could get it done by Friday. Well, okay, what else is happening? How do I support that? And is Friday really that important?
Mm.
So
Yes.
being curious really allows you to have more of that conversation to better influence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when people do well at influencing, right, they understand what is the priority. Like even
Mhm.
as you think about like if you are hard and set on like, nope, this is what needs to be, this, and there's no flexibility in what you're doing, you're probably gonna feel more resistance, right? Because there's zero flexibility on what you're doing. But when you actually take a look at it and say, okay, what is it that I really need? Right? What is it? We like to talk about it like boundaries, right? Like, where are the boundaries of what
Mhm.
I need? And then how can I have people play in the middle of it to their ability, right? That gives people this ownership, right? It dissolves resistance because it's like, okay, like what is there to resist when I can do what I want to do, right? Within these boundaries. So understanding that piece, spending the time to understand, because sometimes it's not front and center, right? It's not something on like, yep, these are the boundaries. This is what we need to move forward with. Sometimes you have to really think about yourself. How do you feel in the situations, right? Like we all have, I mean, how many times have we talk to people and they're like, SOPs must look like this? It's like, no, SOPs do not need to look like
They
that.
don't.
No, but you
No.
need maybe a scope, you need who is impacted, you need these things, right? But it doesn't need to look like that. It doesn't need to look the way you see it in your mind.
Yeah. Even in that example, I think about how that tells someone about the culture around here,
Yes.
right? What it tells me is someone's going to be really directive on, like, it must look like this. Oh, okay. That's really different than someone's like, well, what do you propose for an SOP format
Hmm.
that has, these elements?
Right.
Or what
Yeah.
have you seen work? Like the culture that's coming through on just these seemingly probably like I don't want to say unimportant, but
Yeah.
straightforward things is completely different.
Yes. Yes. And recognizing that most of the people in your organization that's influencing like this do not have the leverage of their title or position to be able to
Sorry about that. I guess we have a little bit of barky going on.
no, that's what happens when you live, right? And dogs are the hardest to influence. So they're kind of doing their own thing. But you're right. Leading without leverage is culture work, right? It is building that culture, and it represents right what your culture is. If you find that people can't get things done without a title, then we encourage you to take a look at your culture.
Sorry for that dog interruption.
No.
I had to get her shoot out of here. So, but yeah, that is such an important part because when we are on autopilot and we aren't consciously thinking about what we're sharing and showing up, that is also showing culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just when we're trying to influence, but this is where it's really such an embedded part of like just how we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when companies talk about culture and like following the values on our wall and this is what we stand for, and it's like that's cool if it's up there, but if it's not how we feel and show up
Yeah.
and how we do things around here, like you can put whatever you want on that wall. Like that won't
Mm-hmm.
matter.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. At that point,
Mm-hmm.
it's just words, right? If you're not doing
Yeah.
that daily, persistent work of a leader. And, I mean, that's also a really good place to start. I feel like this whole conversation, we're like, start here if you're thinking about your culture, because you can take a look at what's written on the wall and you can say, does my leaders have the skills, and does my leaders have the skills to uphold and show that this is the way that we work every day?
Mhm.
Right? If your answer is no, we don't spend any time on influence. We don't spend any time on building connections. We don't spend any time on building teams. Like real time, not just, hey, we have this 1 hour thing you can sign up for and work day, and maybe you do it, maybe you listen to it, maybe you don't, right? Maybe it just plays while you're doing email. Right, that's not a real strategy, right? That's not a real strategy for building these skills. And if you take a look at your values or your mission and you say, wow, we don't spend any real time developing our leaders to do that, then most of the time it's actually not your culture, right? It's like aspirational, or it's maybe it's not even aspirational because you're not really doing the work. It's just words that look and feel good to other people that's
Yeah.
walking and seeing your posters.
Yeah. And, I'll admit I've used those where we probably didn't, our culture probably, our values were more aspirational than where we were at that day.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't stop me from pulling that out to be like, when I didn't have conflict, to be like, does this fit this value? That's not the leadership approach I recommend for anybody to do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we weren't living that value and we knew it. So even trying to use it
Right.
to say, like, are we doing this really? Yeah, it
Woo.
kind of went to the whole like, well, we don't even know what that means for us. We just can read
Right.
it on the wall and we're still all interpreting what that is.
Yes.
So it's so important that we think about
Mm-hmm.
how we're showing up and how are we developing people to be in these spaces and these conversations, because
Yes.
man, if we're not, we always say, right, if we're not taking care of people and being respectful of where they are and their perspectives, like that's what erodes all the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And influence and relationships is all built on trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we see this is why we are in the space that we are today when it comes to culture, right? For years, organizations have asked, their people to trust in them, right, to
Mm-hmm.
work hard, to be dedicated, but we've seen that organizations haven't provided the same thing back. And now, right, our younger generations, which we have raised,
Mm-hmm.
to say, no, I'm not going to really put my full trust here, right? I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket. I'm not going to stay here, for 30 years. I'm going to move around. I'm going to see, or maybe, you know what? I'm not even going to enter this industry because of what we're known for. Like those are the
Mm-hmm.
things that we have to shift if we want to continue to hire great talent, right? If we want to continue to have strong leadership, if we want exactly what you're saying around well-being, that we don't want everyone that's working in the food industry to feel like, burnt out, stressed, taking work home, that impacts our work, our home life too.
Yeah, it does everything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love that we always talk about like culture doesn't change unless leadership does.
Yeah.
Like it starts with leaders, and it's so possible.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the other part where sometimes when you think about, like, even when we share our influence methods from the Center for Creative Leadership,
Mm-hmm.
there's moments where I'm like, oh, I'm not really sure I would be able to do that well, like that
Mm-hmm.
style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other part as leaders is like, it's not about taking on and adopting things that are like not you. It's
Right. Yeah.
about learning what elevates your style already, that feels right
Yes.
to you, that agrees with you, but allows you to be in spaces that you and do things that you probably haven't been able to do before.
Yes.
That's what building these skills is about.
Yes, yes. I feel like great leaders, they learn about themselves and they use these tools to enhance who they
Yeah.
are. I love what you said, Jill, because many times we think, oh, I need to be like that person to be a leader. I need to be like
Yeah.
this
They're
person to be
so influential over there. They always seem to get what they need or want.
right. So I'm gonna try to do it that way. But I mean that works for them. And it doesn't mean we can't pick up tips. I'm like, oh, I like the way they said that. I'm gonna try that. Right. Or I'm gonna try that, but I'm gonna change some words because that fits best with my personality. Perfect. Right, perfect. Like we want to elevate who you are because like you said, it is possible. It's possible for you, who you are as a full human being, to be a great leader. You just might need to sharpen your skills or gain new skills or learn more about yourself in order to step into that space. But it is possible. And we need you
Mhm.
to, right? Like it's like a necessity too. Like we need better leaders in the industry. We need better leaders in the world, right? Who know how to show compassion, right?
Mhm.
Like today is MLK Day in the MLK Junior Day in the States, and so like everyone's mind here is around, perseverance, love, care, compassion. We need leaders to learn these skills and embody these skills, right? So that we can have the spaces that are, fit for everyone, fit for people who want to be there in the space.
Yeah, and those are the things that build trust and connection.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
whether however you think about leading, those are the things that when you bring those into what you're doing every day are the things that make a difference and show people that you actually care and are there for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Mm-hmm.
my perception, and this is the story I tell myself, is sometimes the people who are like the you rah rah cheerleaders, they're the ones who get things kicked off and then they leave. And you're like, oh. So, but they all bring good things, right?
Yeah.
Even the people who are able to use their voice loud, like they bring
Yeah.
sometimes this like another element that we don't see from other people. And
Yeah.
so I think it's the other part, like how do we recognize what everybody brings and understand that we do need all parts.
Yeah.
We need all parts.
Yes. Yes. We need all parts, and it needs to be integrated, into how we move forward. And those pieces, right? On like, okay, what doesn't work well? Like if you have the rah-rah cheerleaders and you never see them again, right? Or they don't come back or they don't do work, like we're probably using them incorrectly, right? We
Mhm.
have their focus here. They're doing great there. People are like, yes, let's go. And then they're like, oh, well, they're not a part of the real work. They're not a part of the times that we feel stressed, or we feel like we're not going to make it to the finish line, right? Like those people have places to play even throughout the process. And so great leaders can see that, right? Great leaders can say, okay, here's where we need to plug those people in, because sometimes you don't need them the whole time, right? Like sometimes it's like
Right.
great having cheerleaders, but we don't need cheerleaders right now.
And I think that's the part, right? Like figuring out what those parts are and being open to recognize that not everybody plays the same part. But
Yeah.
the important thing is like how you show up and how you're consistent in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because without any of that, whether you're loud or quiet or anything in between, if you're not consistent, people that's one of those elements that's really related to trusting people. Like when
Yeah.
I know what to expect from you.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so as you think about influence, it's like we always say, it's in those little moments, those intentional little moments that are every day.
Yeah, yes. So the key points we want you to take away with, and just think more about if you need to influence a situation, or even as you think about your team, right? Where maybe you don't have the title to influence or to demand change, right? Like you're really in this space of where you must do, right? To like, no, we want to influence, we want to create champions to come along with us. The first one is around, influence is not about the demand. It's not about the
Mhm.
control. It's about building real connections. So
Mhm.
start there, right? Where are your connections? How are your relationships? What do you need to know more about people? Start there and build those relationships, because that's where it starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think remember that resistance isn't the enemy.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
When we think about progress and moving forward, that can be, I always say, a gift. It can be a
Mhm.
gift. That's the moment of like, look here, and what else do we need to know? What have we not considered?
Yes.
So influence is about, you know, not only leading forward, but also bringing others with us.
And as you might encounter this resistance, remember that power is quiet, right? You might need to be quiet. You might need to listen, right? Actively listen to what's going on so you can have the best possible solution to move forward.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the last one, influence builds culture, right? Like you need these skills around influence because the majority of your workforce, the majority of the team, right, do not have the title, do not have the authority, and they are influencing and leading without leverage. So this is at the core of your culture. Invest in your people, right, to gain these necessary skills to be able to push through resistance, right? Or I should say invite during resistance, right? Know when to be quiet, when to speak up, right? And really to build these relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the elements that when you think about influence, when we shift to these elements that help enable us to move things forward a little bit easier, that's when we find the wins. That's
Yeah.
when we find the progress. That's when we find we can feel purpose.
Yes.
And that's what we're here for.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think about like if you are in a spot right now listening and you're like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Like, how do I do this better? How do I build some of these human skills, critical skills, soft skills better? Because, when you are here with us, great. We love that you're here and picking up some tips,
Yes.
but this takes practice
Yeah,
and
it
it
does.
takes study. And that's really where we have our spring cohorts open
Yes.
already, right? We invite you to look at these and say, how does this fit with my development goals for this year?
Mhm.
Or do I need to shift some of my development goals because these skills are critical?
Yes. 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 If you find that, man, through this conversation, I need to take a time out, right? I need to learn how to become more aware, or maybe you just struggle with pushing through that resistance, right? And really being able to connect with people. Like our
Mhm.
leadership courses are specifically designed for you in
Mhm.
food to learn and help provide practical solutions to the problems that you're seeing. I mean, we see it
Yeah.
happen every cohort. I learn every cohort as people show up, but just people like, ooh, the light bulbs of like, ooh, oh, okay, I see.
Yes.
I see what I was doing before, and I see how I can apply it differently going forward. And to kind of watch people grow is definitely right. This is why I love doing what I do, is because that gives me joy. But these light bulbs are needed in the industry. Like you said, these are critical skills that
They
we need.
are. They are. So whether you're ready for boot camp, which is kind of our foundational critical skills course, or if you're like getting ready to, lead your function and you're leading leaders, then strategic leader might be the cohort for you. Both cohorts start the week of March 16th. So now is the perfect time to plan, to get registered, so you are ready for those coming up.
Yes, yes, and we hope to see you there.
We do. Because leadership is not a one person show. We talked a little bit about culture does not grow on its own. It doesn't just happen, or it will happen, but maybe not how you want it to be. And
Right.
it really takes intention and it takes structure and it takes a system.
Mhm, mhm. So with that, that is today's real talk. We hope that you gained something from our conversation today. And if this did spark something for you, send it to someone. Send it to someone that might need to hear this message or thinking about their own leadership, that wants to lead with purpose and with grit. And like Jill said earlier, right? Like when leaders grow, that's when culture change. And we're happy to be a small part of that for you. Until next week, have a great week. Enjoy, influence well out there, and reach out to
Mm-hmm.
us if you need us. Have
Yes.
a great rest of
Make
your
it a
day.
great week.
Bye.